Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Rachelle K, and I am here with a friend, somebody that helped me during my time of loss of my son. Her name is Carla, and she's going to come on and she's going to tell you guys about herself. We're going to ask her some questions, and then we'll go from there. Thank you for joining. Okay, Carla.
Okay, so my name is actually Cara, so no L in it.
Carla. Oh, I'm
And
so
you,
sorry.
but when you talk to me, it's always hey beautiful. So you never use my name. It's always
Okay.
hey beautiful with your beautiful spirit. So but yes, so we've known each other for a few years, and I assisted you with the beautiful homegoing celebration for your son, and that was back in 2022. And I have my husband and I own Heritage Funeral Home and Chapel, and we have been here for about, I think, 4 or 5 years now in Marietta, Georgia. And, just following our calling and what God is telling us to do. So we just keep on one day after another and have been blessed to encounter and be with and work with so many beautiful families. I know it's not anything anybody wants to do or chooses to do is to spend time with us, but it has been a blessing to at least be a part of, trying to get them to the next step and walking side by side with families as they begin their journey of grief and their new normal, and trying to figure all those things out.
Okay, so Carla, I mean, I'm gonna just call you beautiful because I've been and messed that all up because I'm not familiar. I'm just used to calling you the other name. So anyway, we had a talk before, and you had just stated to me how rewarding it was what you do. I want you to touch on that a little bit for me.
And I remember that conversation, and I remember you. I think that took you back a little bit by even saying something like this is rewarding when it's been probably such a difficult time for you. But what I mean by that is that and I think you were asking me at the time, how do I get through it? How do I do this day in and day out? And how you know does that make sense to an everyday person? And I say rewarding because, again, it is part of life. Everybody's going to have to go through it. And everybody needs somebody to assist them with that because when it's very close to you, it's your loved one, you're not necessarily thinking and functioning in ways that make sense necessarily. So it is, an honor and a privilege to be there to help people. And it's really not something that well, for me anyway, it's not something that I aspired to do. It's just, as life has gone on and, one thing after another, I was an educator for 18 years. So I assumed that that would be what I always did. But, God had different plans. So, it's just my calling, what I'm meant to do. And for now, that's what I'm doing.
Okay. So we got a few questions I want to ask, a few topics I want to talk about. So where do you find the challenges? What are the challenges in this position? Like, how are you challenged?
I would say the challenges are, you have a set of things that that you're setting out to do. You have your typical, this is what we need to accomplish in order to have this homegoing service for this family and to take care of them. The challenge comes into place when maybe sometimes family members are not on the same page, or you have different elements of the family or different people that love this person that are having a hard time communicating and things like that. So a lot of times, I end up being the middle party to try to bring everybody together. And my family, just like everybody else's family, everybody doesn't always get along. But it's magnified when you're talking about a funeral service. And so those are the times that kind of get a little bit challenging, but it's all done in love. If you think about anger or anything like that, it's because somebody loves somebody, or they so those things I try to help the family navigate through, and that's probably the biggest challenge that I see. And it's not all the time. You may have 90% of families that don't have those issues, but when you do, it is a challenge.
Okay. Is it ever challenging to get the remains to look the way the family would like them to look? Is that ever a challenge?
We have a great team, first of all, and it takes, I wouldn't say it's a challenge, but there's so many steps that, your everyday person does not know about that have to happen in order to maintain a person, keep a person over time, and make them look, their best, regardless of, what the manner of passing was. But we do that by asking for recent pictures of the person. Sometimes people have been sick, sometimes they have been injured. So there's challenges, regarding that. But really, if you take your time and you're well educated, which, funeral directors go through school for doing this, it's not just something that is passed on from generation to generation. You've actually been in like restorative arts classes and things of that nature that will give you the tools to kind of help people look their best.
Okay. Okay. Now, what do you do for self-care? Like, how do you stay yourself? Like, how do you not get so deep into it? Because even for me, just like one is enough. So you're doing them daily, regularly. What do you do for yourself to help you?
If in a perfect world, my favorite thing to do for self-care is just to kind of take time out for myself, whether it be traveling, reading a book, just kind of taking it easy at times. So I try to build that into my calendar. Doesn't always work that way, just because of the nature of my job is to be there whenever duty calls, so it's hard for me to actually take vacations. It's hard for my husband and I to ever go on a vacation together because sometimes, one of us has to be here. But just, I'm really a homebody. So if I, get to stay in for one day and just kind of lounge around, that's self-care for me. You do all the other things, like, take care of yourself physically, mentally and spiritually. But really, just taking some peace and quiet time is good medicine for me, I would say.
Okay, cool. Um, Tell me about the support that you guys, I was on your website today and I was looking at all the things that you guys offer to help with grief. And I know those things are on the website, but do you ever like find yourself like being really personally involved with like the grief process? Like, maybe, I don't know, reaching out to the family after the fact. How does that work? Do you do that or do you just direct them to the website? Do you sit in on any of those, you know, um, I guess meetings that they have? What do you do personally, or what do you guys do as a business to help people with grief outside of directing them to the website?
Yeah. So, regarding directing them to the website, there's a couple of companies like Grief Share, for example, that offer classes and courses for grief, and that those are in area churches is where they do most of that. But for us, in terms of us, we're born and raised here in Marietta, Georgia. So a lot of our clients are people that were also born and raised in Marietta, or that we've known over a lifetime. So really just we try to stay in touch with people. We try to build relationships. We, visit a lot of churches. We visit a lot of family reunions, a lot of, like Saturday is Marietta Day. We'll be out there then. So we just try to keep in touch with families. But in terms of the grief process, I feel like our job is to get the person through the funeral service process, and then we rely on the professionals to take care of all the other things. Although, like I was saying, in terms of education and stuff like that, we've gone to school for grief counseling and things of that nature. But I typically kind of lead the person to the person that can
Okay.
assist them in that
It makes
manner.
sense. It makes sense because you have a position that you're doing and you're filling that position. So then you move
Okay.
them on. And that's good that you guys offer all of that on your website because even people that may not have used you guys for their services would still be able to go there. And actually, with what I'm doing right now, I'm dealing with a lot of people that have grief. I'm going to direct some of those people to your website to see if any of those services would be good for them. I'm going to ask you a question though. When you finish up the day and people call back in, do they ever tell you like that service helped me or thank you for giving me that service or providing that service? Not the service you're providing with the funeral, but those grieving services.
And honestly, we get asked a lot for referrals for grief care. And I would say, especially for mothers, from mothers rather, because I think that, well, I can interview you and let you speak to that. I don't want to speak for mothers that are, grieving, but I know from my experience that is, I would say, the group of people who need a lot of support. Um, and actually, I think I was telling you that before we had the call today that I was at the courthouse. Um, and so when I say out in the community, one of the things that we went to tonight was the Cobb County District Attorney had a kind of behind the scenes of what happens when people pass away, and she had a panel there. One of the ladies that I would love to connect you with, she was there. She was, I can't remember the acronym, Moms of Crime, something along those lines. Um, but I was trying to connect with her, and she was telling me a lot about what she did. So a lot of what I do is if I see kind of a group of people or individuals that I can connect, I might say, hey, think about talking to this person, or let me tell you about this person and what she went through, and, try to connect people that way. And so for that, yes, people have said, thank you for that. Thank you for that connection. Again, I'm not necessarily in that grieving space in terms of necessarily educating people, but I do like to connect people a lot with people that might be able to help them or people that they may have something in common with.
Mhm. I'm familiar with the district attorney. They're having something they invited me to on the 25th of September. I'm actually going to attend because of the location where I am now. So I'm actually going to attend that and see um, if it'll be helpful. And maybe if it's, you know, I'm not going to say if it's not helpful for me because, everything you come in contact with is some kind of help in most cases. Like even doing this podcast is some help for me. I'm not so sad. I'm still very sad though, but not as sad. So we're gonna get on past that one. And so you kind of answered the question. The next one was like, how do you guys build hope? But since I'm not gonna really talk about how do you guys build hope because I believe that you do. And just me dealing with you guys for my um one of the most, I guess, I don't know if I want to say important times in my life, but you guys were there for me. You did an excellent job. I wanted to talk about the trees. That's so funny because I wanted to go back, excuse me, and I never have or I haven't thus far. I wanted to get some trees. And tell me a little bit about the trees. Do you know about the trees?
You mean like people
Planting the
buy
tree.
flowers versus you can buy a tree in memory of
Yeah,
someone? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah. So I wanted to get like maybe 5 trees for Demetrius. Do people get the trees?
And what it is when you purchase a tree, it goes through the, I think it's Tree Service of America, something along those lines. I forget the exact name. But what they do is plant trees where there have been wildfires. So they send you a certificate saying this is where your tree is planted, this is how you can track your tree, things of that nature.
Are people purchasing the
Oh
trees? Do they
yeah,
purchase?
they actually do. They actually do.
Okay.
People feel differently about, what they can do at to for a family to celebrate a loved one. Sometimes they want to buy flowers because they want to want for the family to see that presence at the funeral and know that people are thinking about them. Sometimes they think that that's a waste of money and they would rather, do something like something that's going to benefit the world and remember that person in that way. And so that might be planting a tree somewhere for someone. Sometimes they may want to make a donation to a charity, that is related to that person. So sometimes families will have us, put information about a charity on their web page. And sometimes they
Okay.
just want to donate money to the family to help with funeral services. So those are kind of the most common four, I guess, ways that people show support to families.
And Carla, Cara, how long does the web page stay up there? Does it just stay up there indefinitely?
It stays up there indefinitely unless the family wants, it taken down for any reason or anything like that. But yes, other than that, it stays up there indefinitely.
Oh wow. Okay. Um, so let me ask you about the industry. Do you see the industry making any type of changes? I wanted to kind of ask about, which this is not a change. It's been around probably forever.
Mausoleums.
Mausoleums, yes, yes.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about a mausoleum.
Okay, so when a person is buried, you can have
Hmm.
either an earth burial or you can be buried in what's called a mausoleum. Some people would call it a wall. Not all cemeteries have them, but some do. And so you'll see a structure, a house-like structure at a cemetery. And either you can walk inside the structure or outside the structure. Some are outside, some are inside. And it's basically, a tall wall, and there will be different um, names and stuff like that that you can see where people are buried in the mausoleum instead of in the ground. Um, they're usually a little bit more expensive because that's, less real estate in those walls than it is in the ground. So, but it's just, some people like to buy sections of, the cemetery for their family. Some people like to buy sections of the mausoleum for their family over time. And so
So
it's
tell
just
me
a
about,
different preference.
so in the mausoleum, what do I have? I have the casket, I have the whole entire thing as though it would go in the ground. Is there anything different because we're going into a mausoleum, or is it the same exact thing? So if we were going to a funeral and we were doing a burial in the ground, would it be the same, except it would go into the mausoleum?
Well, a burial in the ground in Georgia, a vault is required, and that's like a large concrete container that the casket goes into. So if you've ever been to a graveside service, you won't see the vault because it's already in the ground when you get there. And then the casket will kind of be over on top of the vault. And then when it's time to bury the casket, it goes down into the vault, the lid goes on, and it's buried that way in a mausoleum. And the reason for the vault is to kind of protect the casket from earthly elements, The mausoleum, you're not dealing with any earthly elements. It's basically like a drawer that you would put the casket in, and then you slide it into that wall. And so you don't need a vault because it's already, protected pretty much from anything that's gonna get into the casket.
Okay. All right, that helps me to understand that. So, is it possible that you could tell us about one of your most challenging times? Like, you don't have to say any names or anything, but just give us like an idea of when you had to do your service. Um, and it was just very challenging. I know you said that when family are into it, that's kind of your thing that is challenging, but was there anything else that you can remember where you just had a challenging time because of whatever?
And one of our big thing is to make sure that and just like you said, don't say any names or anything like that. So I really have a lot of respect for all the families that we serve. So I don't think I would even tell their story without,
Okay, I get it.
permission or anything like that. I'll just say that, family can be challenging, weather can be challenging, timelines can be challenging. So just generally speaking, those are kind of the things that we deal with.
Okay. What is the benefit of pre-planning? Why is that a benefit?
Yeah, so the benefit of pre-planning is has a lot to do with families as well. So if you think about um, a family, let's just say parents and their children, um, and all the different options, like you were asking, what's kind of new in the funeral industry. You have ground burial, you have mausoleum burial, you have cremation, you have a lot of different options. So the benefit of pre-planning is, for a lot of times those parents to talk to their children or their loved ones or their next of kin to say, okay, this is what I would like for myself, so that when the time comes, there's no question, there's no, miscommunication, misunderstanding. There's nothing to decide on because the person has already decided for themselves, um, you know, how they would like for their funeral services to be handled. And sometimes on top of that, you can just decide or you can actually start paying for it as well. So, when you can
So,
take care of all those things.
so say for instance, say for instance, I start paying now. I'm 59, right? And I live to be 99, right? What are the, do you think that that funeral home would still be working and operating? And if it wasn't, how does that work? Am I paying the funeral home or am I paying the cemetery? Like, what am I doing?
That's a great question. So, when you talk about pre-needs, again, there's different ways to do it. There's just here's my wish list and things that I want to do, or I want to start paying on it, or there's lots of ways to do it. But I guess the one that protects the buyer the most is something called pre-needs insurance.
I
Most
need.
funeral homes pre-needs insurance. Most funeral homes offer it. We definitely do, and it's a way for you to put the money that you're paying into a policy. And it doesn't, you can say, okay, Heritage Funeral Home and Chapel is who I designated to, but say, not even the funeral, say the funeral home goes out of business, you can move it to another funeral home. Say you decide to move to California, you can move it to a funeral home in California. So for any reason at all, you have that policy and you can move it. The way it's different from a regular insurance policy is that you don't have to answer those health questions and be have any type of medical testing done for it because it's a smaller policy. It's not like $100,000. It's at the most $25,000. So you can decide this is what I want for my funeral arrangements. And then that insurance company is going to say, okay, here's your payment plan for 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. You decide, and then you just start paying into that monthly or quarterly or annually, however you see fit. And your money is protected in that policy.
Okay, so let me ask you a quick question about that. So my money is protected in the policy, but what prices am I getting? And am I getting today's prices or I'm getting my 99 age prices?
Okay, so that's another benefit for you is that you're locking in today's pricing.
Okay.
So now there is some interest or whatever the case may be for the insurance company, but you are like locking in today's prices. Sometimes people will come in and they have burial plots, for example, from 20 years ago that they may have paid $500 for. Well, today's price, you're probably going to pay $8,000 for that burial, cemetery plot. So, price does definitely rise over time. So that is definitely a benefit, to you to go ahead and lock in prices now.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you some questions just, off the cuff, just me. I'm just
Okay.
asking them nosy and they may not be good
Okay.
questions, but I'm gonna ask them. So you guys are African American, or, that's what we
hmm
are. Do you guys get um families that are not African American?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. A majority of our families are African American, but I think a lot due to our location, we're like a block away from Kennesaw Hospital.
Okay.
People that are traveling to the hospital, just see
Okay.
us, stop by, once they meet with us, say, hey, we want to work with you, and they, have a great experience, and we do too. So we get a lot of people from all different ethnicities for sure.
Okay, that's great to know. And then the other thing is that are we seeing more for us African Americans? Are we seeing more murders now, or is it about the same in your business for you, for your business?
I wouldn't say that. I would say, we opened up during COVID. So for us, when we first opened, we had a lot of people that were passing specifically from COVID or COVID related things. And, people who had been homicides, we had a few here, a few there, and we continue to. And it's really just a few here, a few there. I don't see, a growing number necessarily from what I've experienced.
Okay, okay. And then I know this is a question for what the family wants, but I wanted to ask you, so at the end of the services, right? Most services that I've been to, they bring the casket over to the family, right? And someone told me that's because the family requests that. I want to ask you, do the family actually request that you bring the body over, or do that they just request that they have a final viewing? And is it just a determination of whatever funeral home it is to bring the body over, or is that just what you do on the final viewing? Like, how does that work?
Do you mean bring the family over to the casket?
Bring the casket over to the family. So I know you've seen it where they roll the casket over like to that first row, and everybody get to sit there and go through their final thing. And I was just wondering, like, because it seems so difficult to be able to
They
do
have
that. And it just seems like the family just goes like all through the whole thing again. And I was just wondering, like, is that something that people ask for, or is that just something that is done, but you don't even seem like you know about it?
I have never seen that personally. No, I've never seen that. Sometimes if the family asks to go over to the casket and they may want to close the casket or something like that, but I've never seen the casket be rolled over to the family. But I will say, and I don't know, where I don't know where you have seen that at, but regionally, there's a lot of differences in how people conduct services.
Yeah, yeah. So if someone wanted to be a funeral, if someone wanted to be a funeral director, what would be your advice as to what type of person it should probably be, and where would they need to start?
I would say it's a lot of different types of personalities in the funeral industry. I don't think it's necessarily set for
One
one
type.
type of person, because there's a lot of different jobs as well in the funeral industry. Some people might be more equipped for meeting with families and walking them through the process. Some people may be more equipped for embalming or doing things behind the scenes. That may be their passion. Some people may like to lead funerals. That may be their passion. So those are kind of three very different jobs right there already. What I would suggest would be that a person to go and shadow a funeral home, maybe go on a couple of services with a funeral home, and then enroll in school if it's something that they think that they would like. School for funeral services takes anywhere from a year to a year and a half if you're going full time. A lot of people go part time and it takes longer than that. But you learn a lot then too, and they have you do different things called apprenticeship opportunities where you would go and work in a funeral home. You may go in and embalm and things along that line to just see if it's a good match for you, honestly.
Okay. I was reading because I said, let me read some stuff today. I'm last minute at this point in my life. Like I wait to the very last, like, girl, I used to be 3, 5. months ahead. Now I'm like, okay, wait, okay, that's when I'm gonna do it. But I was reading that there's a need for funeral directors, and it's becoming serious. Did you know that?
Um, I don't know that I knew that. I hadn't really looked into it. We always look at kind of what are the trends in the funeral industry. So anytime there's, something new that's going on, there's going to be a need in that area. I would even say like cremation, like is on the rise. So
Yeah,
that's another whole job that, somebody with a funeral director's license might go into that field.
yeah, they were saying like 37%, I think, are going to retire.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
They said
That
like
does make
37% should be retiring in the next couple of years, which is going to cause a great dent in that industry. And so
sense.
that's kind of why I was asking because we shy away. I can't say we, me, I shy away. It's this thing, and I don't even know why we have it. That was going to be one of my final questions too. Like, why do we have this fear of death? And I know that we don't know what it is, but even as a kid, maybe it's the ghost or something. I don't know. But it's like we have this fear of death and we don't want to deal with it, but it happens and it's going to happen to each and every one of us. So it's like, how do we have those conversations or what conversations need to be had so that people aren't so afraid? Like, even me, like, I'm not necessarily afraid, but I don't want to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to touch, feel, like really none of that. I don't want to do those things. And I just don't know why. You know what I'm saying? It must be something in my childhood or something. But I'm just thinking, like, how do we conquer that? Because we just need to do better in that area and not be like, oh my God, because it's like we don't know that it's gonna happen. It's like we don't understand that it's a part of life. Like we just, and I'm beginning to understand it because it happened so close to me, actually three in a row or four in a row or something like that. So I'm just trying to, wrap my head around it. But what can we do? What do you think we can do that could help people? Do you see that? Like the fear, like
I see it to, a certain extent. And then everybody's life, has been different. Some people have, like you just said, now I don't want to say becoming more accustomed to it, but after you've had four people that were close to you go through that, and you're going through that with them, then, now you're more familiar. It's not so shocking to you. But there are some people that have become adults and they've never been to a funeral, in their whole life. And then somebody very close to them passes away. And sometimes they have no idea kind of what to do. So, I would say one way to combat that is, again, we go back to that conversation we had about pre-needs and when you're talking to your children or your, next of kin or your loved ones and saying, this is what I'm thinking about. And so a lot of people who come in to do that, they have said that, try to talk to my kids, but they don't want to talk about it. They
that's it.
kind of
That's
shy
mine
away
too.
from
Don't
that.
want don't want to hear
Yeah.
nothing. But
Yeah.
I still tell
So,
her every day, like, look, girl, this is what you gonna do. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a lot,
which
and
is
we do need.
understandable. It's
Yeah,
understandable because nobody wants to lose anyone or not have
you
them here
don't
with
want to,
them.
but
Yeah.
you will. You will.
Hmm.
And the thing about it is, I would prefer, like, so let me tell you, you don't got to tell me about yours, but let me tell you about mine because I'm the older one. And that's just kind of what you expect. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
even on my podcast lately, I've been talking about insurance because that's important too. That's pre-planning.
Hmm.
That's making arrangements for your loved ones to be able to take care of your situation, however you want to take it care of. And I noticed too that we don't really get into that insurance thing. And that's just my opinion. I've sold insurance for quite some years, and a lot of times people just didn't want to hear about it. And I don't know if it's because it's for death or if it's just because of a lack of knowledge, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but that's important to us as well. That's pre-planning. Wheels is pre-planning, not just telling people, but writing down where you want your
Right.
things to go. What do you want? Like all of that is something that helps us to better understand and also helps our children and our loved ones because when they hear it now in the back of their head, it says, okay, yeah, if something happens to mama or if something happens to this person, I kind of got an idea that it's possible because we talked about it.
Hmm. And I'll say too, generations before us, like older
Mhm.
generations, they had their stuff together. They had it written down, they had
Mhm.
their program outlined, they had, their life story written, the pictures ready, the insurance policy, the funeral home picked out, the cemetery paid for. Like you see
All
a
in one
lot of
place.
that when you're talking about people that were, 90, 80, 70 years old.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
somewhere along the line, when you get down into our generation, we don't have it quite mapped out like previous generations. So it will be a good thing for us, not only for us, but for our children, to go ahead and map that out and then pass on that knowledge and that mapping out to our children as well so they can do the same.
Right, right. That sounds really good. So I'm gonna work on my family and I'm gonna let them know. So everybody listening to the podcast, work on your family and let them know so we can get some of this stuff do better. So we could just do better and be
And
better able to allow our family members that we leave behind to be able to cope better and not be in such a grief state because they have some idea that this could happen. And this crazy thing is too, like my mom, she was very sick, right? And we kind of knew, like, but we still didn't know. It's like when it happened, it was still like, oh my God, like what just happened? But we
shocking.
knew like all the time, but it still was like, what? Wait a minute. So it's just kind of crazy. I guess I don't know. We just, try to do better. It's the best we can.
And that's why, it's good too to even think about it before a person gets sick. Because when they get sick, you're so busy fighting for them to get better. Like that's definitely not something you want to consider or talk about when a person is sick. So it's good to, take care of things like that when people are good and healthy.
Yeah. And sometimes they get sick and they're not able to talk about anything. So,
True.
you really can lose that opportunity totally altogether. So the best thing to do is to do it now. We are, like I said, I procrastinate to the last minute. Some of the things you can't wait to the last minute for. You gotta go ahead and
Mhm.
jump down on that right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, Miss Lady, is there anything you want to add to this podcast?
No, I just want to say, when you ask about what things can be done, like you're doing it right now, just having a podcast for people to talk about it. You and I get to talk, but then many, many, many people will hear about it and be able to hopefully implement some things for themselves and your children and your grandchildren, will also hear about it and you kind of cemented it in time, like, what you think about things. So, I'm all for a podcast and what you're doing.
I appreciate you. Well, I'm crazy about you. I haven't seen you, but I'm going to get over there and check you out. I thank you so
I would
much for
love that.
taking the time. You are such a light in this world, you and your husband. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you for coming on my channel too. And you have an amazing week. Okay.